Maureen Redfern. When I was a kid, there was a story in a major magazine that talked about how our skin was covered with little bacteria. I remember my mom and dad talking about the fact that there was no way to scrub these bacteria off, and they were freaking out. Of course, since then, science has realized that these bacteria actually help us. Companies are beginning to realize the importance of this microbiome and are selling products that protect these bacteria, but at the same time this first came out, we were all very uncomfortable with the whole idea. Jumping ahead to Scientology and body Thetans, I've watched a ton of critics and only heard this touched on briefly. Some Scientologists, after being told they're covered with little disembodied entities that they can't break free of, lose it. I could see how this might send somebody straight off a cliff, since it's so similar to the microbiome thing. From what I gather, Lisa McPherson may have even had this problem. I'm not a psychiatrist, but if somebody gets out of their car, gets completely naked, and walks around on the street in traffic, it would make sense that they were trying to get rid of something that's attached all over their body. So how do Scientologists accept this without losing their freaking minds? Do most Scientologists, when they're told this, just go, oh, okay, cool? I know that auditing is supposed to remove these body Thetans, but from what I understand, it's a painfully slow process. Why isn't the freakout so much more extreme? Also, does anyone imagine they could sense these beings on them, moving around or crawling like bugs? Or did everybody understand that they were quiet and kept to themselves? Thanks for the question, Maureen. And I think you're referring here with this whole creepy crawly thing to like entomophobia, which is, not exactly the same thing as insectophobia. I think it's more of a general fear of like any kind of bugs or moving things or something. So that's kind of the closest thing I could find in the English language to what you were kind of referring to there. And I could completely understand why people would freak out initially about the whole, bacteria thing or the little creepy crawly things. It's kind of like finding out, that you got little creepy crawlies all over your bed and and your clothes. I mean, they're just everywhere, right? But then you find out actually that they've always been there and they're completely necessary for our survival. They're not just there leeching off of us. Now, as far as Scientology goes, though, no, I've never heard anybody ever say anything about feeling that way once they learned about the body Thetans. I didn't have that experience myself, of course, because I didn't get to the OT levels when I was in Scientology. But after I found out about what it was all about and read it, that wasn't what occurred to me either. I mean, that happened within, a couple months of being out of the Sea Org. So I was still very much in the Scientology mindset when I learned about what the OT levels cover. And I was not a happy camper when I found that out. So let me go over a couple of reasons here why they might not have that sort of, not crawling all over my body kind of reaction to that, because it's kind of interesting. So Thetans, which include body Thetans, these things that you're talking about, are immaterial. They are not physical. They don't exist in the physical universe as such. There isn't anything crawling all over your body because a Thetan doesn't exist that way in the physical universe. It has no position or location in space or time. It has no wavelength, no mass. It just is an awareness of awareness unit is what Hubbard calls it. And if you're immediately thinking, well, then how does it compose your body? Well, you've asked the exact contradiction. You've hit on the exact contradiction that I make a point about all the time with this, is how do you have a spiritual entity that has no tangible form or location even? You can't even go, there he is, or there he is, because that's not how it works, right? They're everywhere and nowhere at the same time, kind of familiar, right? So there's this basic contradiction that a Thetan is stuck in a body, stuck in the material universe, stuck on this planet. Like, why? I understand one way of explaining it actually in Scientology terms, which I won't go into here a whole lot other than to say that there's probably some kind of understanding that the Thetan is located where he's aware of being located, and so that's his location. But okay, fine, but how do you have mass and why are you affected by? I mean, there's all kinds of other questions that come out from this. But anyway, there is this basic contradiction. How does a formless, shapeless, immaterial thing make up a body? doesn't really make any sense at all. And that's pretty much the only way I've been able to reconcile it with myself, is I just go, oh, that just doesn't make sense. you know? And no one, every time I've brought up this whole thing about the contradiction, no Scientologist or even independent Scientologist has ever bothered to take this on or address my point here. I think it's because they don't get it either. It's just sort of this thing that you sort of just kind of take on faith. There's another reason I was thinking also that Scientologists might not be so freaked out about it. And I thought you might find this interesting because this comes out of some of the more recent stuff I've been studying. There's a kinship in evolutionary biology and biology in general, right? Different species don't relate to each other the same way that they relate in species, right? And there is this kinship that exists. So if Scientologists all think of themselves as Thetans, which they do, right? That it's a core belief. I mean, it's the most essential core belief of Scientology and it is a belief. They think it's, they've got some kind of objective proof of it, but they don't. They're just misinterpreting the indications and physical things that happen to them and their subjective experiences as tangible, actual proof. None of that stuff is any proof of anything. But Scientologists have, it's crossed their threshold of believability, right? So they've accepted fully this idea that they are an immortal spiritual being, that their body is just something they own. It's just a sliver in their thumb. It's nothing. Their bodies are dime a dozen. They're all over the place, and there's billions of them, and you've had billions of them in the past, in your previous lives. So bodies are no big deal. You are the spiritual entity. You are, I am. Okay. So once you've accepted that as who you really are, then when you find out about body Thetans, you don't look at them as bugs or as some other species. You see, there's a kinship, right? There's automatic affinity. There is this automatic feeling that you are with them, that you should help them, that you should assist them out of that condition. In the same way that if you were to walk into a disaster zone and there were people laying on the ground and, you'd immediately start triaging and trying to figure out what you should do to help all these people. At least I hope you would, right? So that's kind of how they feel about these newfound body Thetans that they found out about. So it's not the same thing as bugs at all. They just don't even, it doesn't even occur to them to think that way about it. The other thing is that they want to help these little body Thetans out. I call them little body Thetans. I guess, whatever. There's no size to it. But they want to help them out because these body Thetans have been very closely aligned with this you, the Thetan, for a very long time. And they've been so patched up with you, and you've been so unaware of the fact that they are even there, that they exist, that you think their thoughts are your thoughts. And these body Thetans are kind of out of it most of the time. They're not active, running your body. They don't take you over. It doesn't work like that. They're very much stuck there, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it. And most of the time they're asleep or unconscious is how I understand it, or, just immobile for whatever reason. But if they do come around for some reason, you can start confusing your ideas and your thoughts with what they're thinking, because you're kind of linked telepathically, according to Hubbard, right? Of course you are. So by freeing these guys, by addressing them telepathically in auditing sessions and getting them freed up, you're assisting them. You're actually boosting them spiritually, and you're helping them out. And you're also helping yourself out, because now you're becoming more and more who you are without all these invisible accoutrements that you didn't even know about. So if anything, I think people might even be somewhat eager to get into session and start addressing these things and getting to it. And I don't think they feel eked out about it at all. Okay, now as far as Lisa McPherson goes, I just wanted to comment on this because this is kind of important. Lisa McPherson did not get to the level where you learn about body Thetans. She didn't get to OT3. She went clear. David Miscavige cleared her to go clear. Personally, right? He looked in her folder and stuff for whatever reason he did. And that's just part of the story. And then she had a psychotic episode, I believe, while she was doing what's called OT preps. Now, I could be wrong about that, but she had definitely not gotten through those necessary steps to get onto the OT levels and learn about the body Thetans. So that was not the cause of her episode. I would be more than happy to bet money if we could find out, which we can't at this point, but if we could find out for 1,000% sure that it was Scientology that caused that psychotic break, I'd bet money on the fact that that's probably that there was something mixed up with that caused her to go a bit loony, and then have her unfortunate and very, very tragic end of life episode in the care of Sea Org members. Anyway, yeah, last place you want to get stuck. And that's kind of what happened to her. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that additional data for your elucidation. All right. Thanks for the question, Maureen.